influential rank in jihadi organisations.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening. And don't forget to subscribe for free.
My name is Carlton King, and welcome to the Black Spy podcast, the show that shines a light on the world of secret intelligence, national security, and armed governmental personal protection operations, and also looks at geopolitics, the world which I inhabited in all of those roles. So what I generally do is I bring guests onto the show, as you know, and those guests are in a completely different world often, but a world that has interested me and I think will interest you. And I also generally know that many of the guests I have on have an interest in the secret world. So, I can ask them if they want to ask me any questions whilst we're talking, they can do. But basically it's a sit down and to get to understand them from the perspective of geopolitics in the secret world. Today's guest is no exception. It's a man by the name of Najan Ward, who I believe has several different names. I'm going to ask him about that. And just to find out what his life was like. Najan, how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm good, man. You well?
Very well, thank you very much. Najan, first and foremost, what I want to ask you is that your name?
No, is a simple answer. So Najan Ward, so my real name is Najan Tanakarsan Kesav Madwadia, or Nagajan Madwadia. But I created a stage name, Najan Ward, about 10 odd years ago when I was pursuing a career as an actor. And I found, after doing my research, quite a lot of the Asian actors at the time and before that time were westernizing their names to make it, just to make it easier for them to get castings. And I read an article, of an Indian American actor who'd done the same. And then I tried it, and because I was self-representing, I started getting more castings and I started getting more auditions. And it's really easy to think, it's racist or what have you. I never saw it as that. I think it was more people just really struggling, to say my name. I remember when I did a drama class and they didn't know if I was a male or female coming. And they couldn't pinpoint, because my name is Nagajan Madwadia, like they couldn't pinpoint where in the world I was from as well. Yeah. So I just tried it. I tried it out. And then after, doing the whole acting thing, I kind of transitioned into writing and producing. And the name kind of stuck longer than it needed to. Right. And it was only a few years ago where I basically contacted everybody and been like, yo, like, this is actually my name. I've stopped using Najan Ward, but, I'm happy for anybody to call me, the name that they prefer or how they know me. I'm not like, you can't call me this anymore. But everywhere I'm credited now moving forward is as Nagajan Madwadia, and Najan Ward no longer exists.
Fantastic. I mean, it's interesting because it could be seen as you say, as racism, because we all know in the past there was the dustbin, if you will, where certain names went into that bin to start off with. But you also right in saying, I guess some people would look and say, well, is that a man? Is that a woman? If I speak to the guy and I get his name wrong, does he get upset? And things like that. Because I often find within the sort of field of what we're now calling racism, is that people are just frightened. And I don't want that. Is that your sort of finding as well?
Yeah, I'm exactly the same. I think, is that, we are in a world now where people are afraid to mispronounce your name. And I can only assume they're afraid because they've got it wrong and somebody was upset with them maybe before. No, like, it's one of them ones. I think it's kind of like, hopefully it will balance out in the next decade or what have you. But like, yeah, like we've gone from people being very comfortable actually being racist, and then now it's like people, who are not racist are so scared of being misinterpreted as being racist. But hopefully, within time, it will just, it will just balance out. But yeah, people do, are afraid to ask your ethnicity. Actually, I've seen people of color post things like, "What do you mean? Where am I from?" I hate it when I get asked that, and I'm like, I actually prefer it because it's like you're taking an interest in who I am, and you want to be educated on where I'm from. I always find that attitude quite particular. Someone's curious, like why be offended if they're asking for information that they don't have at the moment?
For me, my viewpoint on that. It would always be context. If you say to somebody, they say, "Where are you from?" and you say, "Oh, I'm from up north," and they say, "But where are your parents from?" "Well, they're from up north." If that's the case, where are you really from? That would then suggest to me there's something else behind that. But if somebody said, "Where are you from and what's your heritage?" I got no problem with that. Why would you have a problem with that? And this is what I don't understand. I don't want to go down on the whole race angle, but it's often a battle sometimes now to look for a problem sometimes, when actually the things that really don't matter are what we're talking about, and the things that really do matter, is what we're not talking about. Do you see what I mean?
Yeah, I think I know what you're getting at.
So it's one of those things. Anyway, Najan, what I wanted to do is delve deeper into you. So you said to me you're an actor, now a writer, producer. I'll ask you which you prefer a little bit later on. But I understood that you also had something to do with the record industry at one stage.
Yeah, that's kind of like the first kind of industry that I got into. I opened a record shop back in 2000 in my hometown in Loughborough. And that's when records were all the rage. And we were like, a dance music DJ store. So 90% of our customers, 95% of our customers would be club DJ, bedroom DJs, and then you get a smaller percentage, which were like, proper professional DJs. And kind of started my, that was my first like official business when I was 21. And it was a really, really formative time because I didn't know anything about running a business, and I ran it terribly. I ran it really.
Well, that's good because that's how you learn,
it was just a lot of naivety, a lot of a huge amount of overconfidence, and just really excited by the whole idea of it all, like kind of bringing a piece of what I'd seen in London in the big DJ stores. I'm like, oh, I want this, I want this where I'm from. And I tried to recreate that to some success. It's like the store was actually a success. It just wasn't financially a success. Right. That was a bit of a theme in my first few businesses. There were, to the outside world and to critics, just, amazing rep, great brand recognition and what have you. But the numbers weren't adding up. And that took a bit of time for me to start learning all of that stuff and start getting all of that stuff right.
So when you say that, then were you just buying records in white labels or whatever, or buying records in general and then just sell them, or were you creating the music somewhere in some shape?
The way it initially started was so with the record store, the way it works is that you would deal with a handful of distributors who would manage anywhere between 100 to 1,000 record labels exclusively. Mm-hmm. So, you'd holler like 4 or 5 of the distributors, and then you would literally listen to music down the telephone. Mm-hmm. And you'd be like, I'll have that. So some songs you don't even need to listen to because you know who the producers are. And you would just, buy in whatever quantity, and then you would hope to sell it at a profit. Mm-hmm. So that's how that, so that was just like basic retail. And then, tried to diversify and start selling DJ equipment, and then started stocking CDs and magazines and things like that. But the core thing was actually selling records. But then that did progress into me becoming like what do you call it, a club promoter, starting my own DJ agency, being events manager, and then eventually starting my own record label as well, from everything that I was learning from having the shop and the connections I was making through the store. And then that evolved, into actually having a record label, and then starting to sign artists and doing like events for the label, like globally in like Miami and Barcelona, and obviously across the UK and what have you. So
well, hold on, my friend. You're being modest. You were actually doing well.
It was, I would say, like outwardly it looked like we were doing well. So we were breaking even, but we weren't making like money, like we weren't making a living from it.
Right. Okay.
Yeah, it was just able to keep the business running. But there was important lessons in the record shop, and there was important lessons in the record label, and that, like, a big part of it was partnerships. Like, who are you partnering with, and have you had a really good discussion at the beginning of where you want to take the business?
Mm-hmm.
And I think, those were things that I got wrong, and I didn't even know to even look out for those things in the beginning. So like with the record label, I started that, like, I went 50-50 with a criminal. So yeah.
That's a bit stark. So you're not dressing that up at all.
Yeah, so so he, and I'd saved my money through working at Curry's and what have you, and he was the only other friend at the time who had the money to be able to go half with me, and so I was like, at the forefront of the business. He kind of helped finance it, and he was in the background. But for him, he just needed a legitimate income, so he could be doing what he was doing. So there was never the same amount of energy about really making this thing work. And the record sales, like, and the record business was going down. It was becoming digital as well. So we had, like, it was inevitable that it was going to happen. And like I said, like, I didn't run it incredibly well either. Made a lot of mistakes on that journey. But there was two really important lessons in that record shop. Like, like, choose your, don't take the easy option just because someone's got the money that they can help finance it. Like, from then on, like, there was no, there was everything's been like fully legit. And then another thing I learned from the record shop was kind of like, I don't want to be in a business where I have to be physically in a building where I buy stock that sits in the building and then I have to wait for people to come in and buy it. Like, I didn't want to be in retail, I guess. I realized that. And then, so I knew that for sure. And then after that, I started the record label. And I started it with two friends that I made through the store. One of them was, he was actually like a part-time employee. He was like an incredible house music buyer. His knowledge was just amazing. So he was really good at buying the music, and it always sold. And the other lad was a music producer, like, who was coming into the store. And I just approached them both, and I said, look, I've got an idea for a record label. I hollered them individually, and then we all came together, and then we started the label. We ran that for about, I think we ran that for 15 years. It was a really cool time. It was, we were putting out deep house before it became like commercially quite cool and fashionable. It was quite an underground sound. And then, and through that, through that journey, I think, like, the big thing that I learned, what I realized was, like, a lot of my ideas felt quite cheesy to my business partners. They wanted to keep the label quite underground.
Yes.
And I think one of the words they used was kind of like, we have a cool label and we don't want to.
So they were the type of people who say we want to keep it real, but be paupers. And you were a guy who said, well, let's spread it out a little bit and let's make some money as well. Is that basically where it's at?
I think it was. I think for them, this is going to. I think for them, having a cool label, something that was cool, was really valuable to them. And for me, I've never cared about being underground or being cool or whatever. Like I always worked with, it's just like, I was more about, I want to put out impeccable music that reaches big audiences. And I didn't believe that it had to be one or the other. And you know what? It was really embarrassing because then 2 years after shutting the label, you had Disclosure. I don't know if you know the artist, but like they were having #1 tracks in the charts, big tours, big everything. And they were basically doing what I was trying to do with the label, where they had songwriters working on house music. So they had actual singers and songwriters, and the music's incredible and no one could ever call that stuff cheesy. And that's what I was trying to do 2 years before it happened. But so there was a clashing, within the partnership, and that was that our visions for it were different. And that's totally fine, but I didn't know to vet for that. In the beginning, like, is our vision in the same place? So none of us, like, no one was right or wrong. It was a mismatch of the business owners about where what direction. I wanted to take it into a different direction to the way that they wanted to take it. That's all it was. And again, that was, I feel like, because with every failings, I always look at what did I need to learn from that. And the big one from that was, right, if you're partnering, you really need to understand that person. Like, are you aligned, and do you complement each other? And I didn't do that. I just literally, like, with that label, it's like, oh, I know these two people. I think the three of us can make this bang. And we did. Like I said, like, we had like an amazing reputation in all the magazines. Like, we were always in the top 10. Remember, this is not based on sales. This is based on the critics. Mm-hmm. So we might only be selling 500 units, but it's like, we look like we're like on top of the world. And it's like, you need to be knocking out at least 2,500 to 5,000 units for it to be worthwhile. And we're doing like 500, 800 and things like that.
And they probably weren't saying units, were they? They were probably saying sounds or whatever, because I'm guessing, because I had this sort of deal at a very much lower perspective than you. Right in the beginning, when I first started out, I was doing DJing, and I had a partner, and we were just doing mobile DJ like you do. And he had one way of thinking about it, and I had another way of thinking about it. But basically, I wanted to get into clubs and just basically be paid to go into clubs and play music. He was more a guy who liked mobile and liked just picking money up on a particular day. And he wanted to make his mobile look nice. But for me, it was more the sound, the records, and getting into it, and then being able to play in different areas around, the UK at the time, then subsequently elsewhere. So we were different. We were great friends. We'd been friends from school all the way through, but we were different. And I think he would see things one way, where the music didn't necessarily matter that much, and I would see it another way. Is that kind of where you were at?
So your example, like, correct me if I'm wrong, it sounds like you were more about the music. He was more about like the setup and technically having the right kit and having a great mobile. Yeah. And going into,
I was at the music and business. Yeah. Because I wanted to make money, of course. He was about the setup.
Yeah.
And business. So
okay, cool.
It was more the setup to him. The music was immaterial. He'd play whatever. And so would I, you at a gig, you play whatever. But I wasn't, this is like 70s, yeah? So I'd rather not play Sweet, if you know what I mean. I'd rather play Ohio players. You see what I'm saying?
I do. So, like, interesting, like, do you see that type of personality that you're talking about? So he's really into all the tech and, and what have you. So one of the things that I have to look out for, so like when I'm like hiring for film and TV production, is that, so as an example, you can get a DOP, a director of photography, who basically in control of the camera and the lenses and the lighting and what it's aesthetically going to look like. And a lot of these DOPs are really technically proficient, and they love the tech, they love the cameras, the latest gadgets and the latest lights and, and what have you. And they can be really, really just technically minded. And what I always look for is, but then you get a smaller percentage of DOPs who really understand story as well. Yes. So, and they see all this technical equipment as a route to tell a story. Yes. Where you could get a DOP who's like, it sees all this technical equipment just to create a beautiful frame. But that beautiful frame might not be the right frame to tell that story well, but you just think it looks beautiful because you think of story second.
Yes.
So I have to vet for that that very element is like, are you only technically, if you're only technically minded, you might within the setup you might not be the right person. I need somebody who understands story as well. So I think that's what that I think your friend was like the tech guy, you were the music guy and the business guy, where in my partnership we weren't aligned musically. They wanted to keep it small and underground and have something really cool. I believe that you could have something cool and it be commercial as well.
Yes.
And I didn't see it as one or the other, which they did.
So you didn't want to ghettoize yours, because you can ghettoize it and never really get the full expansion. You wanted the full expansion.
Yeah, I wanted to get, I guess the big part for me was I wanted to start working with songwriters and singers, and our music, a lot of it didn't. A lot of it just had samples. The odd track did have a bit of, and we did sign some music. And I think, I'm just trying to think. I think all of them were me. Everything that I signed, most of what I signed always had singers and songwriters on it and what have you. Where the other guys, it was just more like deep dubs, deep house without any vocals and whatnot. So I just wanted to go. I wanted to go in that lane. And we just weren't aligned. And eventually the label shut down and everybody just kind of moved on to the next thing.
So this brings me now to acting and production, and you've touched on it, cinema and TV. I mean, how do you make the jump? How did you get into that?
So when the record shop, we're closing that down, I started the label. It was, I was just reading a lot. And then I read a book called The Elephant and the Twig, by Jeff Thompson. And one of the things he talked about was like, close your eyes, think of a job that you would really want. Now, that would be your ultimate job. And now tell me why you're not doing it. And for some reason, it was like, oh, I'd love to do acting. And I thought, where on earth did that come from? And I thought, oh, I've got limited beliefs about, a person who looks like me can't get into this game. And then I just started looking into it, started taking classes, and I really enjoyed it. And then, I pursued that route. And one of the things now that I can see in retrospect is that I was really into scripts. Where I'd be up for talking about a script for an hour, for 2 hours or whatever, where a lot of the actors wouldn't. They just wanted to get performing. Yes, but I was introduced to literature that I'd never been introduced to before. And I was like, oh my God, only if I was showing this stuff when I was like at school as a kid, I probably would have really got into this stuff. So I was being exposed to writing, and I just got really, really into it. And then I just started, in the background, I just started writing little short stories and like little scripts and what have you, which I didn't ever share with anybody. I didn't believe I was allowed to say that I'm a writer at the time. And then that just grew, that whole writing thing in the background just kept growing. And then when I came to London, I joined a drama club, and it was an actor called Amel Amin that ran this drama club. He was like the lead actor in a film called Kidulthood. Recently, he was the lead in Yardi, which was directed by Idris Elba. So I worked. He ran a drama club, and then I was going to that, and then we became friends. And then I told him about my writing. He liked one of my scripts, and he goes, "Oh, I want to be in it." And then I said, "I can produce it." I pretended that I knew how to produce at the time, and then I produced that short film that we were both in. Like we were both performing, playing the leads in that short. And then I just remember thinking, this is what I want to do. I want to produce. That's what I really, really enjoy.
So that became your first love then, rather than the acting, the production. So the reason why I'm stopping you there for just 1 second is from outside of that world you're in, a lot of people think a director does everything, but you seem to be saying that the producer's doing everything. Is that correct?
So it depends. It really depends. Like, if you're talking about, okay, maybe it's easier to talk about feature film.
Okay.
So it depends. It depends where the idea has come from. So like you might have a director who has a story that they want to tell, and then they might then go and find the writer to help write it, and then they'll find a producer to work with the two of them, and then between the three of them, they would get it to a script stage, and then the producer would be responsible for getting it financed.
Can I get it clearer, Najan? Just because this world, we all see the names come up on the screen, but we really don't know where it's at, because Spielberg, we think Spielberg's doing everything basically. So what's a producer doing? What's a director doing? What's a scriptwriter doing? Can you just explain that for the listeners?
Yeah, so all right, so scriptwriter, writes the script. So they maybe get you 100 pages, so you got a feature film that can be made. The director would then be like, all right, cool, I've got something on paper. How am I going to tell this visually, this story? And they will be responsible for like selecting, alongside a casting director, like selecting the cast, choosing visually how this is going to be shot, what style it's going to be shot in, what kind of, and then on top of the script, because the story's not finished there, they'll have their own slant on it, like shooting it moody, shooting it upbeat. Like, I'm being really kind of basic language here, but they can put their own.
I think that's important. I think it's important that it's basic, because we all, this is why I find it very important, this film field, TV field. We live in it. We all live in it, but few of us actually understand it. So you're giving us that understanding. So please be very basic so we can understand.
Yeah. So the director would then, put their own, own twist on that, their own tone on that story, and visually how they're going to shoot it. And then the producer, producers can do so many things, but like, all right, so let's say an exec producer, right? An executive producer then has to be able to get that film financed so it can go into production.
Right.
So the producer would then work with a distributor, and let's say they take that package. Here's the director. Here's the script. Here's the treatment. This is what the film's going to look like, and this is the budget that it would need to be made. So let's just say it's a low budget and it's like £5 million movie, and then the UK distributor might say, okay, we'll give you that full 5 million. Actually, no, let's say it another way. So they'll say, look, we'll give you 3 million and we want the UK rights. And then the producer's like, all right, cool, I need to find that, the next 2 million. Let me see if I can sell it in the US or Canada or Japan or wherever. So then they'll then have to then go and find that gap funding, or it could be private investment or what have you. And they just need to get that movie to budget. And then, once they've got that budget, they've overseen those initial agreements, then that executive producer, along with the approval of the financier, will then hire a producer. And then a producer will come on, and that producer's job is to kind of make sure the whole film gets made and it's done on budget. So that producer
sorry again. So an executive producer isn't just the top producer. He's completely different, actually, than a producer in reality. Is that?
Yeah. So a producer usually is the person who's gonna actually deal with the production of the film.
Right.
So once it's been financed. So a producer usually isn't involved prior to it being financed, or they might be involved just before finances come on board, but they're not usually there at the inception of a project. You have an executive producer, who will get it financed, and then a producer will come on and actually get the film made.
So they're like a budget guy, a budget woman. So what you're saying to me is, actually, first and foremost, you could have an executive producer before anybody else.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
that person puts everything else together, and then he or she is cutting off the roles for others to come into. And is it the case, let me just ask this one, because I think I've seen it. Is it the case that with the bigger directors, I'm always thinking Spielberg because I'm not a movie person and that's who you hear of most. With the bigger directors like Spielberg, is it that guy can also be the executive producer?
Yeah.
Right, with you. Okay, I understand it now. So it's you. The idea can come first with the money around it, and then you can start doing the artistic elements. That's basically what you're saying. Is that about right?
So not quite. So like you get lots of different types of exec producers. But like if I describe myself as an exec producer, so I could potentially bring on another exec producer onto a project because they've got really good connections in the US, and they can help me with talent in the US. They can help me with distribution in the US, and like a financier in the US would be like, oh, Mr. X, person X from the US is execing on this film. I trust that person. They deliver, they make things work. If they believe in this project, that's half the risk taken from them. Yeah. So that's the value that exec brings that I now brought onto this project. So it might be, so execs will have like specific roles. So like, sometimes you might see a project that's got like 5 different executive producers and you would think, oh, are they all just doing the same job? Like, no, they're doing very different things. Like you might have one exec producer, that say like I might bring on an exec producer and it might be like, look, I've got multiple projects on at the moment. I want you to exec on this. I need you to babysit this situation. These are the things that you need to keep on top of. And then if only things get really out of control and that person can't deal with those executive decisions, then they can come to me. But then they just might manage the producer, and then the producer manages, the line producer and the director, and like, the crew, location managers, like the whole thing. But I might want to put an exec in between me and the producer just to give myself more bandwidth to, to work on another project. You could get an exec producer, like I've got a friend who I won't name, but they got brought onto a movie to exec, and that person's one job was to bring one A-lister actor onto it, and my friend had a good relationship with that A-lister and the agent, and and when my friend brought that project onto the movie got greenlit.
Now this was going to be my next question. When you were saying that, I was going to ask about the power of the actors, because we all hear about the top A-list stars, and obviously I've spoken a little bit about what I think is a director that's big. Are there producers that are big in the same way, and where does that power lie in the end?
Power
to make things happen, to get them done.
So again, like, that's the beauty and the complexity of this industry, is that every project is slightly different. So as an example, you might have like a really powerful producer who just got an amazing track record and does really great work, and actors want to be in their movies, right. So it's like, okay, so this producer's on board, they make things happen, and they've got a really great track record. So if an offer comes from that producer to an agent for a piece of talent, it might be easier to get them on board and get it over the line. You could have a smaller producer, who might not have like all the accolades and what have you, but they might have done something that was interesting, and a certain actor was like, I really like this person's work, even though they haven't done a great deal. I like their artistic vision. I like their creative flair. I want to work with that particular person, and then they could work together. So there's no like real like super hard and fast rule of like who holds the power. So like in that scenario, like the actor. So I think like, on Snatch, when Guy Ritchie did Snatch, I think the highest paid person was Brad Pitt, I think, on that movie.
Yeah.
And Brad Pitt had watched Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels, a super low budget film from East London. And, he contacted Guy Ritchie and be like, I like what you do. I know you don't work on big budgets. I'd work on a smaller budget. If you have anything in mind, do let me know. Because I'm writing something at the minute called Diamond, which was Snatch.
Right.
And then, and it was like, Sony then financed it, Brad Pitt's on board. It's going to get bums on seat. And it's kind of like, the power balance can shift depending on, the criteria, of the movie. So there's no hard and fast rule of like, who holds all the power, but you will have like top 20 actors that can just get things greenlit. You can get like top 20 writers. You can just get shows. I don't want to say that they can just get them greenlit. We'll have more confidence from the commissioner.
Yes.
To be like, I might not have seen the whole package or the whole script, but you're giving me a log line and a synopsis, and because it's you, I believe this will be great. Where if it's an unknown or whatever, you might have to demonstrate story Bibles, season Bibles, 2 episodes written, writers' rooms, all of these different things, because the commissioner needs to have more confidence that the project is going to work. So yeah, and it's not the power doesn't always lie with one person. It really does depend on the project and who's coming on board.
And is it always perceived as a gamble? Even if you get Brad Pitt, is it always seen as or just a lesser gamble if you've got Brad Pitt?
It's just calculating. It's like a calculated bet, isn't it? If you have James Cameron come in and give you a few lines about a new sci-fi idea that he's got, it's probably going to be a win. It's probably going to be a win because he knows what he's doing. He really understands his craft, and he really understands making shows for really large audiences. Mm-hmm. So he's tried and tested. So you can be like relatively confident that if you put this team together, you're going to get something really good at the end of it that's going to sell. It's like football teams and what have you. Like what managers have to do, like they have to assemble a team that can win. It's the same thing with filming, and film and TV. If you put a handful of really talented people together, the right people who complement each other, they're likely to do a really great job. So like, as an example, let's say in that creative team, be a combination of like directors, 4 or 5 writers. If it's TV, you could have a lead director, then 2-3 other directors, writers room with 10 writers, and then you could have actually like 4 or 5 writers. Then you've got, I don't know, like 20 odd casts, and then you've got some really amazing talent within that. And then it's like, all right, it's now being managed by these producers who are not going to let the creatives just run away with it because they know it needs to sell and it needs to land, and they can keep, and that producer is like the middleman between the commissioner and all the creatives. The producer has to make sure that this thing delivers and that it will hit an audience, audiences will respond well to it. So yeah, if you can assemble a really good team, then you're just lowering that risk for the person who's financing it.
Now, we've all seen in movies and TV, in fact, more and more, the sheer numbers of people involved in it. So 2 questions come to mind. How easy is it to get into the industry, or how difficult? Number 1, in any given facet. And secondly, how secure is it in the industry?
Okay, so Okay, so the question is, how easy is it?
Or
Sorry,
difficult, easy
or difficult
to get
the
into any part of the industry? Because there's massive people in it. You see it, grip this, or I don't know, lighting man this, or tool that. You see all these different names, who've obviously all got a job.
Yeah.
But the question is are those one-off jobs? Are they jobs that they can work on all the time? Or is it that, yes, you can get in, but making a living is then quite difficult? That's basically my question.
Right. Yeah. So there's a sliding scale to that, because it depends at what part of the industry that you want to work in. So firstly, have a look at it like this, right? So firstly, it's a freelance industry, right?
Okay.
A lot of it is freelance. So you don't have that security of that paycheck. So it's only going to work for a certain type of mind from the get-go. Some people don't like the idea of not knowing exactly what they're going to earn each month, where some people have got, no matter if they do a good or bad job, they will get that pay. They'll get that pay, that exactly, each month. So, you have that. Outside of being able to do your job well, you need to be able to really network and keep your contacts warm, and hopefully you're good enough where when jobs are coming up, the people who are doing the hiring are thinking of you and reaching out to you. So you constantly need to be able to find work. So that's one thing, and that, again, that's not comfortable for a lot of people. There's a lot of money management in all of that as well, because you could find yourself not working for a month. That can easily happen. So yeah, and you need really, really good money management. And then about, is it difficult to get into the industry? And I don't think it is, if it's the industry you want to be in.
Okay, it's interesting.
Because I don't know. I guess
you're talking about dedication, aren't you? You're talking about being dedicated to be into it.
Yeah, because if you don't love what you do in this game, why would you put up with all the downsides?
Yeah, like,
it doesn't make sense, because it's not secure. It is really competitive. Nepotism does go on. So you might have to fight twice as hard as the next person. And yeah, especially if you're like production crew and what have you, working conditions are really tough. Like, you're working crazy hours, 6 days a week, 14, 15 hours a day. That a lot of that is going on at the moment because of the backlog of COVID, and because of the amount of production that's going on in the UK and globally. People are having to work really, really hard. And I see when I've been on set and what have you, or been, people I've been working for like 3 months and been doing minimum 12-hour days, 6 days a week for the last few months, and you can see they're all tired and what have you. But then when you see them at the end of the day and they've like gone to the pub or whatever, and you get chatting to them and you start learning about all of their lives, like, they don't have much money, they're finding it really hard, but they absolutely love the work that they did that day.
Right.
They absolutely loved being able to support this production being made, whatever, be it a runner, a gaffer, if you're just doing your job is to move lights around all day. But, that person, when they saw that shot on the screen and they helped facilitate that, like, that's their drug to them. So it's like, as an example, like, I could never do production. Like, it's grueling and what have you, because I don't love that element of filmmaking.
Yeah.
I love what I do. So what I found is that the people who I find myself who are working, in my circles anyway, they really love what they do. So yeah, and when I do, I think I did a talk once at the BFI, and there was like a lot of young filmmakers coming out of film school and what have you, and they were talking about how tough they were finding it and how challenging they were finding it, and how some people weren't, they couldn't get in contact with people, and they weren't responding to emails and things like that. It's kind of like, you're not fighting hard enough.
Right. Right.
It's really competitive, and I remember, like, it just so happened that person was trying to contact somebody who was running the film fund in the Midlands, and I just had been in contact with the person that this person in the audience was struggling to get a hold of. And I asked him, like, where are you based? He goes, Birmingham. And I said, where's the office of where this woman is? And he goes, I don't know. And I said, it's in Nottingham. Like, go down there.
Right.
Like,
right.
That's what I do. That's what me and Ash do. Like, we turn up places. Like, we go and find people. Like, it's like the only thing that's important is the result.
Yeah.
So if you're not getting the result that you want and you're finding it tough, I agree that it's tough, but you need to be more inventive, and you need to work harder than the next person, and those things won't be a problem if you really love what you do. That's why, that's why I say, like, you have to really, really love this thing. I don't know why you would do it. Like, for me, this thing is a curse. It is a curse. Like, I wish I could do something else, but I can't. Yeah. This is what I want to do. It's not, and I don't need to be motivated. I don't need motivation or anything. Like, I'll just.
The task is motivating enough, basically, is what you're saying.
Yeah, most of the time, I'm not motivated.
Yeah,
I'm not motivated, but it's just what I want to. It's just what I want to do. So yeah, it's important to me. So I have an agenda. Like, there are things that I want to put out, in my storytelling that will help move things forward. Like, for me, it's not just about making money or whatever. Well, yeah, it's that's lower down the line. I know that will come as a result of great work. But yeah, like, especially at SLNda, all of us we've got something that we want to do in our storytelling, and tell stories that we needed to see and hear when we were growing up. So especially if you've got an agenda and if you've got a reason, that will help you see it through the difficulties. So I guess the answer is yes, it is a tough industry, but I don't know, I'm surrounded by people who are working, and they didn't come from any privilege, and they've just done it because they want it.
But when I see most actors in the United Kingdom, at least, and this is acting, I don't know about the other roles, but acting, I see that the oftentimes of a certain class, a higher class individual. They appear to be, from their accent alone, which you can tell from the United Kingdom. And when you hear stories of Harvey Weinstein and that angle of it, that you're right, nepotism, and I guess if you want to stay in the industry, you do what I say. If you don't want to get the parts, you don't do what I say. I guess that's how he was working that particular angle. So you said it can lead itself to that, which it does. But what I'm saying, is there's two strands there. So one in the production side of your Harvey Weinstein side, and the other one in the side of the actor, seeming to come from the Royal Shakespeare Society, something like that, where a lot of the highest British actors have been.
RADA.
RADA. So is it to some extent in various areas of the business sewn up, or is it not?
Is what in various areas of the business?
In various areas of the business, is it sewn up by certain people, i.e. people of a certain class, or people with a certain amount of power, like Weinstein?
So, and are you asking this question like sewn up like for actors?
One for actors and one for, and I'm guessing if Weinstein can say, you don't act in this movie, I guess you can also say you're not part of my production crew either.
So, okay, right. So first and foremost, what's really important to remember, right, that this is a business. So, so everybody's creating a product, be it a film, be it a TV show, and it needs to make money.
Yes.
And in order to do that, it has to have all the right people working there. And the level of hierarchy and importance, again, is a sliding scale. But on both sides of the camera, you need the right people there. You might not need to be as vigilant with bit part actors, or within production, the smaller roles that need less skill. Like, you might be able to do away with that, but if you want a good product at the end of it, you need the best talent. Like, that's basically.
I guess my question is: are they the best talent, or did the ones with the best opportunity? That's my question, really.
So look, right. So if you're like, if you go down the road. Right. Okay. So imagine it's me. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm producing something, and I keep casting like these actors that are in my circle or in my friendship group or whatever, and their performances ain't landing, and it's not working. I won't be in business for long. That's the harsh reality of it. Yeah. I read Simon Cowell's book. I forgot what it's called. Like, he wrote it himself. And in the last chapter, he talks about how people these musicians sleep their way to the top and this, that, whatever. And he broke it down, how much it costs to break a new artist.
Yes.
And he goes, it's not worth it. I'm better off hiring a prostitute than, sleeping with somebody and signing them and spending like £500,000 in promoting them and recording sessions and what have you, and getting them to market. It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make financial sense. So if you, I'm not saying it doesn't happen here and there, and it probably happens with the lesser important roles or whatever. I don't know, but like, I'm sure it happens and what have you. But if you're not employing the best talent, your work isn't going to be great, and it's not gonna pop. I think what was going on with Harvey Weinstein, that he was at the top of his game, but he was able to. Again, I don't know all the ins and outs, but I think part of his thing was that you have to sleep with me, otherwise I'm not going to cast you. Yeah. But he could choose from like the 3 top A-listers, right? So, and one of them probably will, and then that will get the role. But he was still picking from the very best talent.
I see what you're saying. So his pool was such that he was such a powerful guy. His pool was such that he had the top people, and he knew he'd make money on one of these 5. And so it's just a choice of which of the 5 am I going to make money on.
I'm speculating. I don't know this.
Speculation.
Yeah.
Of course, we can't know that. We can't know that. We can't.
But that's all I can assume. But like, again, like if you're an actor and you're listening to this, and it's like, oh, I haven't got a way in because the people who are in there, they're always going to be favored and this, that, whatever. Look, it's not true. Like,
That's good.
I'm in conversations with producers, casting directors, commissioners. Like, they need the right person for the for a particular role. And those actors who went to RADA and places like that, like, it's very much needed, because like one of my favorite shows is The Crown, right?
Okay. Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of those actors will have come from that world, like National Youth Theatre, your LAMDA, RADA, Guildhall, like all of those types of schools. But then you've got shows like This Is England, and you've got shows like Top Boy, and it's like those actors didn't go RADA.
Yep.
None of them did.
Yeah.
And the casting director was specifically hired to find that raw talent.
But was that raw talent at that particular time a one-off, rather than a multiplicity of opportunities for the ones who did go to RADA? I guess that's my question. So
you got to remember, right? So if you look at okay, so this might be a pretty decent example. So if you look at these 3 films, if you look at Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels by Guy Ritchie and Matthew Vaughn. And then if you look at Snatch, again by Guy Ritchie and Matthew Vaughn. And then if you look at the third film, Layer Cake, which was Matthew Vaughn, not Guy Ritchie, and Matthew Vaughn was directing, right? And even in the marketing, it was kind of like, here's the two films we made before, but it was like Matthew Vaughn had only had only produced the first two films. It was Guy Ritchie who directed it, and I was listening to a talk that Matthew Vaughn had done on Layer Cake, and he was talking about how he likes working with actors because they know their lines, they turn up on time and all this stuff. And apparently that was a big problem in the first two films because Guy Ritchie was casting real people.
Right.
And if you watch those three films, you'll see the first two has got that nuance. It has got that edge. It has got that thing, people really bought that thing to it. And you can see in Layer Cake that you've got more polished actors in that.
Yes.
And it hasn't got that rougher edge, that natural thing that comes through in the first two films. So, when Top Boy's being made and what have you, like, trust me, every agent is throwing their actors who have been to all of these schools and what have you and whatnot. And for a show like Top Boy, it doesn't matter where you've trained, can you bring it, right? So everybody auditioned for Top Boy, and whoever got in, and they also, and when you look at their backgrounds, most of them are not like trained, like professionally NCDT accredited trained. It's not like the casting director won't see certain actors; they'll see everyone. And at the same time, like those actors that were in Top Boy and what have you will probably really struggle to play an aristocrat in the crowd. Are you with me?
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's just about, what can you bring to the screen, because you can have middle-class actors play working class characters amazingly well. It does happen. It's not like it's impossible. But when it comes to the casting in the audition room, like who's bringing what the finances and the director wants and the producer.
I'll bring that to you in my world, because one of the things that you have to learn, or that I had to learn as a working class person, in some of the things that I was doing. So one thing I was, let's just no names, no places or whatever, somewhere in the world, I was kind of a wealthy guy who was doing something. And one of the things I had to learn was the very basics. So basics like, example, look, I knew how you ate with various knife and forks and all this because I've been in special branch, and this was in the Secret Intelligence Service in MI6. But I've been in special branch, and as a protection, I've done protection part of special branch as well. And you go to all of the top meetings from people from various states or whatever. So you go to a place where there's 18 different knife and forks laid out all in a line, and you're in evening wear and you eat your food just the same as anybody else who's there. So you learn all that. That's easy. No, what I'm talking about is you being somebody else in a world where you're going to a top class hotel somewhere in the world or whatever, because you want to meet some guy who's a financier for a terrorist organization, whatever it might be, somebody you want to get close to. And what you've got to learn is things like wealthy people might order Wagyu steak and only eat an eighth of it just because they wanted to try it and just leave the rest. Now, that's not normal to you because you've been brought up of, when you get your food, somebody else is starving in the world and you eat all your food. You've got to learn how to push that away. Did you see what I mean? So I understand what you mean, the acting bit, because there's, clearly that's acting. The acting bit has to be right. So that's acting in one area of kind of undercover work. And then I've acted in other areas of undercover work where I've been dirt poor. And then you've got to act when you're dirt poor. What's it like when you're dirt poor? So I can see both angles, but I believe you can do both angles. It's a very wide range, that. And I believe you can do both. It's just difficult. It's the part of the learning.
Yeah, you see, like what that makes me think of, and I totally agree that anybody can do like both, right? Like, but have you been exposed to it, and have you chose to observe something very different to
Very
you
true.
really, really well? So like, you've been put into scenarios where, like, that whole steak situation and what have you. Like, when you say it to me, it makes sense. I wouldn't have known that. I wouldn't have known to do that. I would have got that thing wrong, because I would have been the guy who ate the whole steak, right? But again, like, if you're middle class and then this casting has come up and you have no access to that world, and then you're just going for the audition and you've relied on a day's worth of research to get you through, and let's say the casting director is from that world, or another producer in that room, or who are watching the tapes are from that world, and be like, yeah, that person hasn't got it. That doesn't mean that person couldn't spend the next 2 years learning and observing and whatever. Just like how you did, you learned and observed, and then you were able to do all of these things. It's like, yeah, do you have access? Do you have access to that stuff? So that's why, yeah. So I think anybody can do anything, but what do you have access to? And I don't think it's a closed shop. It hasn't been in my experience. I think one thing a lot of actors might not know is that a lot of films and a lot of TV shows have already got the lead attached. It's like before even the script has been written. Or towards the script, like first or second draft of a script. So a lot of these things, you haven't even got a look in to play the lead or whatever. You've got to work yourself up to that position where you now have economic value, where you can get things greenlit. So you start getting offers, as opposed to you having to audition for something.
Gotcha.
So that can be a close, that, but like other roles around that are most definitely not. So yeah, and also it's just about whatever you believe, you're going to find evidence for. So if you believe that stuff, like, you will find stories,
true.
And that, and then you just got to ask yourself, what is the value of believing that? Because you're not going to be inspired to take quite bold action if you already think you can't make it because the industry is a certain way. If you are if you are more optimistic, you're more likely to make,
or more determined.
Yeah, like, you believe you can do something, you believe something can happen. So therefore your actions are going to be like of a better quality. And you're more likely, to make it happen than not.
Now, Najan, we have, and you won't know this, but it is the case. It always happens when I'm talking to people. We've kind of done an hour. So I know it flies, doesn't it? It's fantastic because it's so interesting. Now, what I did want to hit on was, I know you've got the company called SLNda, and I know you've got a particular perspective that you want with the company. Could you just inform sort of listeners as to how this came about, and what is your angle? What are you trying to achieve with the organization?
So SLNda, is a film production company. So me and Ashley, decided to come together.
Ashley who?
Ashley Walters.
Okay.
So his journey is musician, actor. But we'd had a working relationship for like nearly 10 years. When we started, it would have been about 5-6 years. And we liked how each other worked, and we decided to come together and create this production company, because I always knew that he had ambitions to do more than acting. I knew he wanted to produce. I knew he wanted to direct. We kind of came together. And the thing that when I pitched this idea to him, one of the things I was talking to him about was that, if you look at I love loads of directors, but like, let's say Guy Ritchie, and let's say Ricky Gervais and Danny Boyle. If you look at their early work, right, they told stories from worlds that they really understood, that was intrinsically theirs. Like, Danny Boyle's first 2 films are all kind of based in Scotland. You had Shallow Grave and then Trainspotting, and you got Guy Ritchie doing like East End films in London with like, and all of them got like a little Jewish type of edge to it. And then Ricky Gervais, like The Office and Extras and stuff like that, just from his own life experience of working in these places. And they just told stories about life that they really understood and had seen. And that's when I said to Ash, like, let's do exactly the same thing, unapologetically, like, let's not try and create things that are already being made and what we think channels want. Let's tell stories that we really, really, really understand. And, and if we employ enough smarts and be smart enough about it, let's not make these art house projects. Let's make this in a way that they can be like commercial projects and can be on like the big platforms. And like one of the examples of that is the television series The Wire. When you look at that, you can easily think, oh, this is a black show. But then if you actually look at it, it's like, it's not. It's like the casting is so wide.
Yes.
They balanced it all out. They told stories from different perspectives, on the legitimate side, the illegal side. For the first time, I saw
the political side, the union side.
The union, like the
press.
The journalism. Yeah. And I got to see, for the very first time, there might be black and there might be criminals, but they were ridiculously intelligent. And it was the first time that I got to see that, that they work like a proper organization. And it was kind of like, we can do the same thing. Do you know what I mean? Like, and we'll tell stories that are British, and it will be from our perspective, and it will naturally be things that we wanted to watch when we were growing up, things that we wanted reflecting back to us. And that's what we set out to do, and that's what we set out to do. So me, Ash and Laura have been kind of, working full time on this.
How difficult has that been? Was it receptive? Was it an area that was long missing from the British vernacular, and so therefore people were receptive to it, or did you need to push your way through?
Oh yeah, so we did have to push our way through, but I think part of our strategy was, if I do say myself, was on point. So when we started this, I said to Ash, I said, look, we're going to develop some ideas, and we're going to co-pro. We're going to co-pro with another production company that is much like a big company, not someone small, not someone just kind of similar to somebody who's big and someone we look up to, and somebody that has a track record. And we're going to have to create leverage. We're going to have to create something, develop it to a certain point, and then take it to a co-producing partner, and then leverage that deal so it's 50-50 and SLNda gets full creative control. That's not an easy feat. We were advised that we wouldn't be able to do that we would have to take smaller percentages, can't get creatively. We're talking entertainment lawyers telling us this stuff, agents telling us this stuff. And we did get exactly that, so we developed our ideas, and then, we're working with a big producing partner where we are creative lead, and it's a 50-50 split. And that gives confidence to the financiers, the commissioners, when you've got that big partner on, as opposed to us going single-handedly, saying, oh yeah, we can manage a £20 million budget and we've got no track record. So yeah, you get that security. So because because that part of our strategy was solid, I'm surprised a lot of other companies don't do that. I'm surprised a lot of startups don't do that. There is another thing though, we're quite different in our production company. If you look at a lot of production companies that start out, like you'll read a new production company starting every week, they're usually created by people who have worked in film and TV, like as producers or execs or commissioners for at least 10-20 years. And then so many like people on commissioning teams and what have you then are like, I'm going to start my own production company, where we didn't have any of that experience,
because they think they've got the in. So and they're bringing their contacts with them. Is that what you're?
If I had to guess, right? Like a lot of the on commissioners and what have you, like they love the creative aspect, And if you've been working in a commissioning team or have been a commissioner, and you're seeing all these great ideas coming through, I'm sure there's a part of you like, I want to create something.
Yeah, right.
I want to create something. I know how it works. I believe I have the creative ability to put a team together. And then they start a company. And then they've got contacts as well.
Yeah.
And then they know, how the commissioning process works. So that gives them a good standing. It's kind of what I did when I opened my record shop. I went and worked at HMV for 3 months. And because, I didn't know where to buy all my records from. I didn't know the names of all the suppliers and stuff. And I learned that at HMV and then took that information and I used that in my record shop. Yeah. But they've got the ins, but me and Ash didn't have that history or that background in film producing. So that really served us having a co-producing partner. So that was the strategy, and it's been working well. And we've got 2 projects in paid development. We've made a short film for Sky last year or the year before, which has been nominated for 2 awards. They didn't win either of them, which is frustrating, but they've been nominated and recognised by big bodies like Edinburgh TV Festival and Broadcast Awards. And things are, things like behind the scenes are coming together. Like, we're not able to announce them just yet, but we're making good headway. But I think that's because a good part of our strategy was solid, and I think we've got an amazing head of development, Laura Russell, who's like just making sure all of our ideas and our slate is on point. We're making good headway. So I think we're working with Pact. So we got selected as a Future 30 company, and we got selected by Channel 4 for the Emerging Indie Fund. So we're making like steady progress. Like, this year should hopefully be the year where we start making, start getting things over the line and start making bigger moves.
You see, this industry is one that I think many people want to join, as I'm saying, and I guess from the outset, most people would say, I want to be an actor. That would be the thing that most would say, because that's what they see. And then maybe second, they'll say, I maybe want to be a director, because as I said to you, that's what I see. You see that director. Maybe now that people listen to this, maybe some might say, I want to be a producer. Because I don't think these roles are explained enough to people, that they understand that they might wish to be involved in this particular arena. My question is, from that, are there any sort of, we know about actors training and all the rest of it, and we know that obviously directors get training. Is there training for producers? Is there training for script writers? The training for these people exist, or how does that work?
Yeah, so there is, I think you can even do them at university level in modules and stuff. So,
okay.
And there's short courses. There's a school called Rain Dance that do short courses as well. They're based up near the Embankment. They teach the fundamentals of producing. I personally think the best way to learn is start making short films. Okay. You could do it for next to nothing. You can get 2 actors, 1 writer, 1 location, and make a 5-minute short. And you can put all of that together, and then you can distribute it on Vimeo or YouTube or enter it into festivals. It's dead easy to do. You don't need to wait for anything.
Right.
You can edit films on your phone. This is a real thing. So I think just by doing the job, you'll learn, and then network with people, who are producing like independent movies, short films, and television series and things like that, and ask if you can shadow, if you can assist. That's probably the best way. Like, if you can offer value, like producers are really busy, right? And usually can't afford PAs. If you're able to say to a really good PA, say, I'm super organized, I can make your life easier, I'd like to PA you for the next 6 months, you'll learn a shitload about producing.
Right.
So there's that. And honestly, I think Masterclass I don't know if they do a producing one. There's there's quite a lot of YouTube channels and stuff, but Masterclass is I know they've got really good directors and script writers who do courses on there, like video courses. So there's lots of information online to learn about the job. So couple that with, watching the tutorials, reading books on it, and actually making a few short films. That will get you will get you really, really well versed. And then if you can collar a producer who can mentor you, if you can say to somebody saying, look, can I have 30 minutes of your time once a month? That person can be like, okay, yeah, you can. That's not gonna kill me off.
Yeah.
And if you can be really economical with that person, you can get a lot of support. Again, it's just about wanting it, being inventive, and not buying into the idea that it's a closed shop and it's too difficult. I don't know. We just live in the information age. These getting in is not as hard as you might think it is.
Super. I mean, Najan, we've run a long time, and one of the negatives of the show, I shouldn't put it that way, but I will, is its short time frame. And we have to keep it relatively short. So, yeah, that's been absolutely brilliant. I mean, do you have any questions for me? If not, not a problem. It's great. I think that anybody who wants to be in this industry has listened to you and has seen the plethora of opportunities there are in various areas. And you've provided advice about how to get in and to have that determination and that guile and that I would say just belief, self-belief that you can push your way forward into the industry. So listen, as I say, if there's nothing for me, I'm going to thank you on that. It's been brilliant. And I'm sure many people have learned a hell of a lot.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks for bringing me on. I really enjoyed. Yeah, just talking. I don't get a chance to talk about this stuff much. So yeah, thank you for the opportunity.
Not a problem. I think for me, it's been something that I've always wanted to have expanded upon, because as I said to you before, all I really knew about was actors, director. That's it. Yeah. And I think that goes for the vast majority of people who are not in the industry and who are really ill-informed about how the industry functions. So Najan, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that was it. You had a fantastic opportunity to listen to somebody deep within the industry who's pushed his way through in this film, TV industry. And hopefully, if you've any thoughts whatsoever about getting into that industry, has actually given you the right direction and the right methodology in order to make your way through. So thanks again, Najan.
You're welcome. Nice one, man. Have a great day.
Thanks, same to you. See you again. Ladies and gentlemen, see you next week.
If you'd like to help Carlton keep producing the Black Spy podcast and receive episodes and information that's only available to Carlton's special Patreon agents, then you can donate as little as £3, €4 or $5 a month by signing up with Patreon. See the Black Spy podcast notes or Google Patreon Black Spy podcast and pledge your monthly amount. You can even win the opportunity to be a guest on the show. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to subscribe for free.
Here is a working class spy telling his stories, the secrets, the lives of spies. Feel free to message Carlton King on all socials and give this show 5 stars on Apple iTunes and subscribe so you never miss a single episode. For your ears only.
I was a member of Her Majesty's Secret Intelligence Service.